Hey you guys, welcome to the channel. It's me, Canva. Welcome back to my tribe. Okay you guys, in this video I wanted to share with you 3 different pay structures that I experienced as a surgical tech and as surgical first assistant. So the first pay structure, and this is pretty much any profession in the medical field, that you can be a staff employee. So a staff employee would be where you just go to work, you work hourly. For surgical tech and first assistants, you may be required to take call. That's pretty much it. You get paid bi-weekly, so you just get paid, we'll say on average between, for surgical tech and first assistants, somewhere between $30 and $50 an hour. You work 40 hours a week typically. You get paid every other week, and that's that pay structure. So it's very straightforward. This is a very common way of pay for surgical techs and surgical assistants. Another way that I want to talk about is as a travel contractor or a contractor in general. So as a contractor, you can be a contractor 2 different ways. You can be a local contractor or you can be a travel contractor. So a local contractor would make a higher pay rate, however, is no non-taxable stipend. So if you're within 50 miles, you will not receive the housing or meal stipend as a local contractor, but you will receive a higher pay rate for being a contractor to the hospital. So this pay is going to be more around $60+ an hour. For surgical tech, we'll say on the higher end of $50 an hour, and as a surgical first assist, around $60 to $65. I've even got offers at $70, $80 an hour as a first assistant. If you're gonna make that as a local contractor, it's an hourly rate, and that's a W-2, right? So now that even though you're making more money, you're getting taxed at a higher tax bracket because you're making more money hourly. And so what we know about the employee structure is that the more money you make, the higher you get taxed. So it doesn't matter if you're a local contractor or an employee. When it's in this business model, or this pay model I should say, when you're an employee and you're making these high hourly rates, you really don't see that number because you're gonna get taxed at a higher hourly rate. Okay, so then let's add another aspect of contractors. This is the travel contractor. So as a travel contractor, you're outside of 50 miles typically, and you'll receive an hourly rate as well as a meal and housing stipend or per diem. So the meal and housing stipend is non-taxable. Okay, so to give you an idea or an example of how this plays out, let me just explain it to you a little bit more. So we'll have an hourly rate of, let's just say $50 an hour. You get that, you work 40 hours or whatever the contract stipulates. So you'll know how many hours you work based on the contract that you receive. It could be 36, it could be 40, but let's just say it's 40 hours a week at $50 an hour. So you get that amount of money, right? And then you also get the meal and housing stipend. So the meal and housing stipend is regulated, and you can go find out what the meal and housing stipend is for whatever city or state you're going to be working at on a website called gsa.org. And on gsa.org it tells you how much the max that you can get for your meal and housing stipend depending on the area that you're going to live in. This, as I stated, is non-taxable. So let's just say on average it's about $1,200 additional a week. So we'll have, let's do a little bit of math. Hold on you guys. So I got a handy dandy notebook right here in an old-fashioned pencil, right? A number 2 pencil. So we're gonna do 50 hours time, or $50 an hour, and we're gonna times that by 40 hours a week, which would be $50 an hour times 40 hours is $2,000 gross per week. So that's pre-tax. So that's just gross. We know that'll be taxed at about 20%, we'll say, but I'm not gonna do that math right now. We're gonna do $2,000 a week. We'll just take out $300 for taxes. I'm just gonna guesstimate $300 for taxes. This is not an exact math, but this is what we're gonna guesstimate. So that leaves us with $1,700 per week, right? 18, 19, 20, yeah. When y'all be counting, do y'all use y'all fingers? Because I do. That's $1,700 a week. I'm gonna show y'all what we got here. Just check my math. Yeah. So I don't know if y'all can see that, but that's what we got. $50 an hour times 40 hours is $2,000 a week, and then we're gonna subtract $300 for taxes, leaving us with approximately $1,700. We're gonna add a $1,200 per diem, which is meals and housing. That's your meal and housing stipend, and it's non-taxable. Okay, so let's just see what I got here in this notebook. So we got $50 an hour times 40 hours a week, which is $2,000. We're gonna take out $300 approximately for taxes, leaving us a net at $1,700. That's after taxes. Then we have a $1,200 meal and housing stipend or per diem that's non-taxable. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add $1,700 to the $1,200, and that will bring us $2,900. Right, my little handwriting over there. I might do like a little layover of this, but we'll see. After taxes. So that's not a bad deal, right? Because even though you're being taxed on the $40 an hour, the $50 an hour, which is netting you about $1,700, you're gonna get $1,200 in per diem. Now this per diem is gonna be for you to have to pay for your housing expenses and your travels, the travel area, the travel location, as well as if you have a home or residence and your permanent location. So y'all know that I have a permanent location here in Jacksonville. So when I was in New Mexico or California or any other places outside of 50 miles from where my permanent location is, then I get a meal and housing stipend. I have to take into consideration how much it's going to cost when I go to the other facility in this different location. So if like here in Jacksonville, I pay approximately $1,200 a month for my house. When I was in New Mexico, and that's just the rent. We're not even going to talk about the electricity and the utilities that I do continue to pay. As far as the Wi-Fi, I pay everything. Even though I'm not here, everything still gets paid, and so the Wi-Fi and the utilities stay the same. So this is part of the travel contracting experience. So these are just some things you have to take into consideration. Are you going to take your car? Are you going to not take your car? Is there public transportation? Is there any type of public transportation? It might not be bus or you know, like a train system. When I was in Cali, they have the BARTs. But is there Uber? Is there Lyft? Because when I was in Mexico, guess what? They didn't have Uber or Lyft. So you had to have a vehicle there. So I flew my vehicle, or I shipped my vehicle to me. I flew out. That was about a $2,000 expense up front because I needed my vehicle. I also had to pay about $2,500 up front for me somewhere to stay just to get to these places. So when you're looking at a travel assignment, you have to take in all the expenses that come with it. But we'll talk about that in another video. In this video, we just gonna cover the pay structures, right? So now we understand how the travel contracting works. So you have your hourly rate times the hours that you'll work. So you'll get this weekly amount, you'll have your gross, then you take taxes out, then you get your after taxes or your net, and then on top of your net you get the per diem, which is non-taxable. So that's how a travel contract works. Oh no, my earring fell out. Okay, so then you have another pay structure, you guys, and this one is not as popular, or maybe it is and I just haven't really experienced it. But I was recently talking to a group, because this was an actual surgical group, and how their pay structure is set up as a 1099. So a 1099 is not a W-2, so there's no taxes taken out. You pay taxes on the back end. Now what that means is if you make $40 an hour, we'll use the same $50 an hour. $50 an hour, you're gonna make, no, that's $2,000, right, per week. There is no tax on this. You get that full amount up front. Let me see, can y'all see that? Y'all get that full $2,000 up front. Ain't nothing being taxed. Now, how does that benefit you? Well, because it's a 1099, you get to take all of your expenses and write them off at the end of the year. So can you save, or can you write off as much as you would get if you were as a travel contractor? It depends on the numbers, right? And so yes, you will be able to write off your housing, your transportation, your meals, and all of that through a 1099, because that's a small business structure. When you talking 1099, that's a small business owner, or self-employed I should say, and you get to write off all of these taxes. And because it's a business, you get the tax break from the IRS, these different tax breaks, right, from the IRS. And so that's a way for you to actually make money, as well as a surgical tech or first assistant. That's a different pay structure. Now this one I would say is a little more advanced, because you need to have either a CPA, or you need to have tax experience to even be comfortable with doing your own taxes. So because I have my own studio and I've done hair and I've had other businesses, small businesses where I'm self-employed, I'm comfortable with doing my own taxes. But if you've been an employee your entire adult life, then this might be a little more intimidating, right? Just to recap, I'm saying an hourly employee. And if you know anything about business and financing, then you know who Robert Kiyosaki is. Robert Kiyosaki wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki also wrote a book explaining to you the 4 quadrants of the tax, how the taxes are broken down. So you can go over to Audible and download Robert Kiyosaki 4 Quadrants book and listen to what he has to say about each of these pay structures. Let's just say you don't have the know-how of being a self-employed or small business owner, then employee may be the easiest route until you can get the knowledge on how to be self-employed. So maybe doing a 1099 might not be the best pay structure for you, but you want to make more than what the average employee is making. So then that's where contracting as a travel contractor comes into play. I'm not going to tell you not to take a local contract, but it doesn't give you the same benefit as it would if you were going to be a travel contractor. Now, if you are the person that has, you know, a lot of monthly expenses at your permanent address, then maybe when you go to your travel location, you rent a room instead of paying for a whole nother house. So you have to be mindful of how you're using your funds if you're going to be a travel contractor, because you have expenses in both locations typically. Now you can have like an RV or something like that, and I know people that go that route. If that's what you want to use as your main living quarters, then by all means. But for me, I'm in the process of purchasing this home so I can turn it into a rental property. So even if I'm renting right now, but even as I purchase it, I'll still have a mortgage, right? So I want to be able to cover my mortgage myself, even if I am renting it out. I don't want to put myself in a position where I can't afford a mortgage and somebody isn't renting it. So when I'm looking at a travel contract assignment, I'm thinking, how much is my non-taxable? So we talked about $1,200 being your weekly stipend. That's non-taxable. So $1,200 times 4 is an additional $4,800 a month. Do I have $4,800 and living expenses combined? So when I was in New Mexico, my combined living expenses for New Mexico and for Jacksonville was $3,125 a month. So I had a remainder of $1,675. It could balance out, or you could have more money left over depending on how low your permanent living expenses is, plus your temporary living expense. Really, I probably was even less than that, because you got to take into consideration the utilities. Just subtract from that $1,675, we're going to subtract another $3. So I was left over with $1,375 from my meal and housing stipend that wasn't taxed. $1,300 on So what I'm actually gonna do is $1,300 divided by 4, which is $325. So realistically, I was bringing home, after expenses, and this is not even, I'm not talking about my car and all that, I'm just talking about living arrangements, just the housing. So $1,700 plus the $325, netting or $2,025. So I would show y'all, but it look a little chicken scratch. But you can kind of see over here, I added a 17 to the 325 and got 2025. And then over here I divided I divided the 4 into 13 because I had $1,300 left over after the expenses, and I divided it by the 4 weeks because you get paid every week. And so that number came up to the 325, and so I added the 325 to the 1,700 net that we getting up here from the hourly, and that's how I got the 2,025. You have to kind of do the numbers, you guys, and see what works for you. It just depends on what you got going on. These are 3 pay structures that you could possibly see if you're thinking about working as a surgical tech or first assist. So I hope this video was helpful. Please let me know what you think. The one that I was saying earlier, the 1099, that offer actually is a salary based offer, and you'll get all your money up front and you'll do your taxes on it yourself, so you can kind of play with, you know, the numbers. But you're gonna have to learn something. Like, that's gonna take a that's gonna be a learning curve, because you're gonna need to learn some tax codes, or you're gonna have to pay somebody to do your taxes for you, because that's a little advanced. That's a more advanced strategy. The simpler strategy is what we already know, is by going to work, getting a regular employee staff job and getting paid hourly. And you know, that's a way that you could go about it as well. That's probably the easiest way. I will say surgical techs and first assistants make pretty good money. They make even better money as travel contractors. But if you can do a 1099 and you know how to finesse the numbers without going to jail and it being like illegal, then this might be, it gives you a little more control over your finances, right? But tell me in the comment section which structure works best for you. I'm still up in the air, you know, like doing this video and just thinking about the numbers and running the numbers. Actually writing them down and kind of seeing it on paper makes it a little more, I can understand it a little better, right? And so then I can make a better decision on which model I think would be best for me in my situation currently. So you guys, that's all I got for you in this video. I hope this was helpful. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.